Most people believe financial problems begin with one big mistake: a bad investment, a risky business decision, or a career move that didn't work out. Something dramatic, something obvious, something you can point to and say, that's where everything went wrong. But when researchers examine how households actually lose money, the story looks very different. For most people, money doesn't disappear because of one catastrophic event. It disappears quietly. $10 here, $20 there, a forgotten charge that renews every month, a habit that repeats itself every day. Individually, these things seem harmless, almost invisible, but over time they behave like tiny holes in a ship's hull. Each one leaks just a little water, and the real danger isn't the leak itself. The danger is how long it takes before anyone realizes the ship is slowly sinking. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people eventually discover. The financial system isn't broken. In many ways, it's working exactly as designed. Not to make you poor, but to make spending effortless. Frictionless payments, automatic renewals, and invisible transactions create an environment where money quietly leaves your account without demanding your attention. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey, the average American household now spends roughly $78,000 per year, yet a surprising portion of that spending happens almost automatically. Not because people are reckless, but because modern financial systems are designed to remove friction. Subscriptions renew automatically, bills are placed on autopay, apps store your card information, and purchases happen with a single tap. Money leaves your account faster than your brain has time to question it. And that's why so many people work harder every year, yet still feel like they're running in place financially. The problem isn't always income. Often, it's invisible leaks. The good news is that once you identify these leaks, fixing them doesn't require extreme budgeting, sacrificing everything you enjoy, or turning your life into a spreadsheet. In fact, the 5 fixes in this video can realistically save many households $2,000 to $5,000 per year, sometimes more. But to see them, you have to look in places most people never think to check. Let's start with the leak hiding in plain sight. Fix number 1, the subscription trap. Modern life runs on subscriptions: streaming services, cloud storage, fitness apps, meditation platforms, software tools, and delivery memberships. Each one feels small. $10, $15, maybe $20. On its own, none of these payments seem worth worrying about. But the danger isn't one subscription. It's accumulation. A study by C+R Research found that consumers estimate they spend about $86 per month on subscriptions. When their actual bank data is analyzed, however, the real number is closer to $200 per month. That gap exists because subscriptions exploit a psychological blind spot called payment invisibility. When a charge becomes automatic, your brain stops treating it as a new decision, and it becomes background noise. You sign up for a free trial. The trial ends, and billing begins automatically. Weeks pass, months pass, sometimes years. A streaming platform you opened twice, a productivity app you used for 2 weeks, a premium service you completely forgot about. Each charge is small enough to avoid triggering alarm, but together they quietly drain hundreds or even thousands of dollars every year. Fixing this leak starts with a simple audit. Open your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements and scan for recurring charges, every one of them. Streaming services, app subscriptions, software licenses, and membership programs. Then ask 3 questions. Did I use this in the last month? Would I notice if it disappeared tomorrow? Does another service I already pay for do the same thing? If the answer is no, cancel it immediately. Not next week, not when you remember, but right now. For the subscriptions you keep, consider downgrading to a cheaper plan. Many people pay for premium tiers simply because that's the option they selected when signing up, and they never revisit the decision. A single subscription audit like this can easily recover $300 to $1,000 per year. But subscriptions are only the first leak. The next one hides in one of the most routine activities in modern life. Fix number 2, grocery spending without a strategy. Food is one of the largest expenses in most household budgets, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the average American household spends over $10,000 per year on food. But surprisingly, most of that spending isn't determined by what people eat. It's determined by how they shop. Many grocery trips follow the same pattern. You walk into the store without a clear plan. You grab ingredients that look appealing in the moment, and you add a few convenience meals because you're unsure what you'll feel like cooking later. Then a few days later, several items sit forgotten in the refrigerator. Eventually, they spoil. Food waste becomes invisible. The USDA estimates that 30 to 40% of food in the United States goes uneaten, meaning a large portion of grocery spending literally ends up in the trash. The smarter approach reverses the decision process. Instead of planning meals first and shopping second, you start with weekly store promotions. Grocery stores rotate discounts in predictable cycles. Chicken might be discounted this week, ground beef next week, and certain vegetables during peak harvest season. When you build meals around these promotions, you automatically reduce food costs without sacrificing quality. Families who consistently shop this way often reduce grocery costs by 20% or more. For many households, that means $1,500 saved every year. But statistics only tell part of the story. In my own household, this became impossible to ignore. Our family has several people living under the same roof, which means different appetites, different schedules, and different food preferences. And naturally, that tends to push grocery spending higher. For a long time, our refrigerator always looked full, but that didn't mean we were actually using everything we bought. More often than I'd like to admit, vegetables would sit forgotten in the back of the fridge. Leftovers would be pushed aside by newly purchased groceries, and eventually some of that food had to be thrown away. And throwing food away isn't just wasteful, it's essentially throwing money away. So at the beginning of 2026, our family made a small but important adjustment. Instead of buying the full amount we thought we might need, we started purchasing roughly 70% of our usual grocery volume. At first, that idea sounded risky. Would we run out of food? Would meals feel limited? But something surprising happened. That simple change forced us to become more intentional about how we use what we already have. Ingredients left after dinner often become breakfast the next morning. Extra portions from dinner are turned into meal prep lunches for the next day. And one rule became especially important in our kitchen. Cook what we need for the day and avoid letting food sit in the refrigerator for too long. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is reducing waste. And unexpectedly, this shift made our kitchen feel more organized, more efficient, and far less wasteful. Sometimes the biggest financial improvements don't come from earning more money. They come from simply using what you already have more wisely. But groceries aren't the only expenses quietly creeping upward. And at some point, many people experience a quiet realization. The problem isn't that life is becoming more expensive overnight. It's that small inefficiencies accumulate for years before anyone notices them. Fix number 3, bills that nobody questions. Most people treat monthly bills as permanent. Internet service, phone plans, insurance, and cable bundles. The price slowly increases every year, and most customers assume nothing can be done about it. But that assumption is often wrong. Companies spend enormous amounts of money acquiring new customers, while keeping existing customers is usually far cheaper, which means most providers have pricing flexibility that customers rarely ask about. That's why companies maintain retention departments whose entire job is to prevent customers from leaving. And they often have access to discounts that regular customer service representatives cannot offer. A simple phone call can unlock surprising savings. Internet plans sometimes drop $20 to $50 per month, phone plans often shrink $15 to $30, and insurance premiums may fall 10 to 20% after a rate review. The script is straightforward. Call your provider, explain that you're reviewing your expenses and comparing competitor pricing, and ask whether any loyalty discounts or promotional rates are available. In many cases, you'll be transferred to the retention team. Spending 15 minutes on the phone can easily recover $300 to $800 per year. And unlike extreme budgeting, this strategy doesn't require you to give up anything. You simply stop overpaying. But some of the most surprising leaks happen inside your home. Fix number 4, energy waste. Energy is one of those expenses people rarely question. You need electricity, you need heating and cooling, but inefficient settings can quietly inflate utility bills for years. And in recent months, that pressure has become even more visible. The year 2026 began with significant uncertainty in the global economy. Conflicts in the Middle East intensified, energy markets became volatile, and oil prices started climbing again. When fuel markets move, the effects ripple through the entire economy. Transportation becomes more expensive, shipping costs increase, and gradually, the prices of everyday essentials, from groceries to household goods, begin creeping upward. In my own household, the impact appeared surprisingly fast. Within the first 2 months of 2026, our family's energy costs increased by nearly 20% compared with the same period the previous year. That kind of jump is hard to ignore, especially when income is not rising at the same pace. Energy becomes the quiet multiplier behind many other expenses, which is why our family began paying much closer attention to how electricity is used at home, turning off devices that aren't being used, unplugging electronics that quietly draw power, making better use of natural daylight, and even exploring small solar solutions for limited household needs. None of these changes feel dramatic, but together they help keep energy costs under control in a time when external forces, geopolitics, fuel markets, and supply chains are pushing those costs higher. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the average household spends more than $2,000 annually on energy, and small changes can make a meaningful difference. Fix number 5, high-interest debt. High-interest debt is the financial equivalent of running uphill while carrying a backpack full of rocks. Credit cards are convenient, but they are also one of the most expensive financial tools most people ever use. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, credit card interest rates now average around 25% for many accounts. At those levels, interest compounds aggressively, which means the debt shrinks painfully slowly. One of the most effective strategies is the debt avalanche method. List all debts from highest interest rate to lowest. Make minimum payments on every account, and direct every extra dollar toward the debt with the highest interest rate first. Every dollar used to eliminate high-interest debt produces a guaranteed return equal to the interest rate avoided, and that leads to the final realization most people never consider: the compounding shock most people never notice. Imagine these 5 fixes save you $3,000 per year. Now imagine investing that money instead of losing it to invisible leaks. At roughly 8% annual returns, that small change grows dramatically. After 10 years, the savings grow to about $43,000. After 20 years, roughly $148,000. And after 30 years, more than $500,000. And if those savings continue compounding for 35 years, the total approaches $650,000. Not from a genius investment strategy, not from predicting the next big stock, but simply from stopping the quiet leaks draining money every month. Small losses compound, but so do small fixes, and the future version of you will be very glad you started noticing them today. Thanks for watching.